Hello and welcome to episode number 34 of the Wise Mind Chats, the Wise Mind Fireside Chats. We live in a world that is obsessed by excess. So we're going to talk about temperance, which is the practice of self-restraint, balance and moderation in all aspects of life. It's about mastering our wills, our attitudes and our behaviours, bringing harmony over chaos, that constant desire to get more, gain more, be more. So, what does temperance mean to you, ladies? And how do you bring it into your lives?
I'll get back to you. No, I'm just kidding. So what stuck out for me was balance, right? Balance is my astrological sign. I'm a Libra, so balance is the key element for me. And I definitely know when I'm out of balance, I can tell. So I feel like moderation is the key to everything in life, because even we all have some guilty pleasures. We all have some things that if we go overboard, we will call them a vice, right? Or we'll call them an addiction or a coping mechanism. But when done in moderation, it may just be something that we enjoy doing once in a while. So moderation, I think, is the key to everything, in learning how to regulate, in learning how to cope, in learning how to find joy and gratification without going overboard and losing sight of long-term goals and progress. How was that? That sounded like it made sense in my head. So I hope that that came across the way I wanted it to.
Cool. For me, it's we live in the most abundant time of human history. We have got everything that we need at our fingertips, but people are still striving for more because they can get more. They can keep striving for more. They can keep eating more. They can keep watching more. Everything is at our fingertips, but it's learning when's enough. How are we going to take aware of our own bodies? Even like I said about me drinking on a Friday night, I would love to be able to sit and have a drink and enjoy it. But the minute I'm sitting having a drink to get drunk, why? So this is the awareness that I think would be really helpful in this day and age. As it's like you said, Erika, balance things out. So you're not neglecting yourself, you're not abusing yourself. And it's keeping the balance between your heart, your soul, your mind, and your gut, that you're treating yourself, in effect, treating others in a certain way without just seeing what else you can get from them, what else you can get from society. So that's what it means to me. It's self-awareness.
You've both heard me say many times self-awareness precedes everything. I used to use certain specifics, but self-awareness precedes everything. And you're absolutely right, Stacy. We live in the most abundant time in history, or do we just live in the most excessive time in history? Never has consumption and conspicuous consumption to show our wealth, to show our control over nature, our superiority to people around us being so prevalent. And I think the way of the Tao tells us everything should be in balance. If you binge drink on a weekend and then you spend the entire week in forced sobriety, but actually craving something at the weekend, you're constantly pendulum back and forth, binge eating, overconsumption, and then crash dieting. The key is, I think, as Erika said, balance. Freedom is not the ability to consume to excess, and discipline is not living our life in chains of the aesthetics, living like monks, etc. How do we find that balance?
I think the first step is understanding what's driving us to be filling our time with all of this excessiveness. What are we escaping from? What are we trying to avoid feeling? What is happening that we don't want to deal with, that we just can fully engage in an over excess of whatever it is that we're doing, right? Why do people binge out and sit for hours and hours and hours watching Netflix? Gone are the days of watching a show and you put the show on And if you're not sitting in front of it when it starts, you're going to miss the show. Remember those days where you had a television show and it was 8 o'clock on Tuesday night? If my ass isn't on the couch ready to watch that, I'm missing the show. If I'm not back from the bathroom after the commercial, I can't rewind. Those days are over. We have on-demand viewing, but yet we act as if we're never going to see it again, right? It dawns on me, we could actually go to bed because this is going to still be here tomorrow. We don't have to sit here. So what are we avoiding? What are we trying to not do? What are we not wanting to face? What are we not wanting to change? I think that's how we start with it.
You hit on something that I read recently in a book, Francis Weller, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, highly recommended. And he talks about living in a society where we exercise amnesia or anesthesia. We're pushing things out and away from our minds by things, binge things, whether that be eating, Netflix, whatever other streaming services are available. We're not advertising Netflix or criticizing it for that matter. But we do anesthetize and we do deaden our memories, our thoughts, our emotions using this. And historically that's been done with drugs, misuse of whether they be illicit or legal. And Stacey's mentioned alcohol, but smokers, what happens when people stop smoking? Almost inevitably they gain a load of weight because they just replace one oral habit with another oral habit.
Yeah, it's also like listening to your self-talk. And because when you start saying, I can't do this, or it's forbidden, or I'm not allowed, your brain automatically starts looking for it. Because I could say to myself, right, I can't drink at the weekend, I'm not drinking at the weekend, and I'm not allowed drinking in the house, it's forbidden. It's like the cravings, it's like your brain's over, your chimp brain takes over, going, I need it. So how we talk to ourselves and go, right, if I falter, it's fine. There's always next week. There's always a time after that. I can try and try again. And it's interesting when you were on about the streaming, the programs. I've got my son who keeps on getting on to me because I think there's about 4 or 5 different series he wants me to watch. And I'm absolutely not. And he's like, why? It's just because once I start binging, I won't stop. And then I think that's a waste of my time. But then again, when I think of what I do with my time, it's not exactly going to be any different because I'm still wasting my time. So it's becoming intentional. If I'm doing something, for what purpose am I doing it? Am I getting something attainable out of this? Or am I just wasting time? Am I actually getting something done that I can, at the end of the day, say that I've achieved? Or am I distracting myself from something?
I think you both hit on something. I'm going to reference another book now, Paul Francis, Rewilding Yourself. And one of the points Paul makes in that is that we changed at a point in history from being a lever society, so hunter-gatherers, indigenous peoples, they would never take the last of anything, whether they were picking berries, apples from trees, catching salmon from streams. They took what they needed and no more. Whereas we have moved into a taker culture. We will strip everything in nature bare because of this. We don't want to go without. What does that leave for other elements of nature? Little. The fish are depleted from the oceans, the land's being destroyed by chemical farming. We live in this era of the potential of Anthropocene mass extinction, the human race dying out as we know it because of this greed and this overconsumption. So where is the line between indulgence, when we used to have festivals such as Christmas and Easter, and we would have something that we celebrated, and maybe we'd have a special meal, we'd celebrate in certain ways, and the constantness of treats. Erika was talking about sitting in front of the TV show, and that brought back so many memories. But so does the sound of the ice cream van, and that was a real treat. You'd hear the music of the van, you'd go out, you'd get an ice cream, It might happen 2 or 3 times in a summer when I was a child. Now, things like ice cream are almost a daily thing. They are no longer treats. They are just part of people's day to day, which obviously has the impact, as we know, on unhealthy diets, reduction in life expectancy, and all those other elements.
I am sitting here, and it's our last episode was about respect of your elders, which basically we come to the realization that respect has become a foreign concept in general in our society, right? For each other, for ourselves, for the world, all of that. So I feel like we're bringing that forward into this conversation. So we've identified that our society is severely lacking an understanding of respect the way that it used to be, right? And hopefully getting back to that in some way. I don't know how. We're talking here now about temperance and going overboard, not being out of moderation, out of balance with these things in excess. And to me, what I'm feeling is we're lacking now discipline. It just comes down to discipline. Nobody's saying you can't enjoy the things that you enjoy to do, right? Stacy, you said a story about your son wants to watch a series with you, and you're stopping yourself because of your fear around binging and going overboard with it. And no need to stop, right? If we're disciplined, right? Because that's a deeper connection with your kid. That's time sharing with your son. You could be bonding around. We're missing the connection because we're not disciplined, which makes me lead directly into boundaries, right? So I feel like we're lacking respect. You just said it, right? We'll strip nature bare because we don't respect it. And if we don't have discipline, we will just go to hell with ourselves, doing all sorts of different things. And then eventually we lose the pleasure in that as well, right? Because how many nights have I stayed up with Brett binging a show and then being pissed that I didn't go to bed when I wanted to, feeling remorseful. So what's the pleasure in that? There's just discipline and boundaries, making an agreement with myself. I'm going to watch 2 episodes tonight, and then I'm going to bed. We can do everything. It just comes down to discipline, I believe, and boundaries and respect. If I respect myself, I can have the discipline enough and the boundary. I'm only going to watch 2 episodes because I have to take care of myself and go to bed because I will be better for it tomorrow. That's a healthier way than just watching a whole entire 12 seasons of a show in 12 hours. Really? What am I doing here? This doesn't make any sense at all. I didn't enjoy the show. I probably fell asleep halfway through. This is stupid. It just, at some point, you have to get real with what behaviors you're engaging in and why.
Yeah, I do. I love that because the boundaries certainly come into it. Because I've got a neighbour who's got a family of 4, but they've got 9 cars and 2 motorbikes. And when it comes to people consuming stuff, it can be a status. They want to have that status that they've got, the lifestyle, because that's how people are judged most of the time, especially in community, is what kind of house have you got, how many bedrooms, how many en suites have you got, how many bathrooms downstairs have you got. So you're judged by how much stuff that you have attained, and we can get sucked up into that. We can be duped by that. Well, if I haven't got this, and nobody's going to like me. If I haven't got that, I'm not going to be known as this type of person. So it's really getting to know ourselves, what makes us tick, what makes us get up, what makes us be us. And a lot of people will hear the compliments about how well they seem to be doing rather than what kind of people they are. So they're too busy seeing what they can get in next. Even the streaming, there's a lot of peers that will hold conversations about the programs that they've watched. And if you haven't watched that program, you could feel left out. So it's like you're binge watching it to be a part of it, but by the time you binge watched it, they've moved on to something else. So you're constantly, again, it just comes down to the boundaries. What makes me tick? What is it that's important in my life, not in other people's life? So I've got a house that's falling apart left, right, and centre. But I had a friend who came up and she just went, I absolutely love your family. They're always smiling, they're polite, but it had nothing to do with what I had in life. It was about who we were as people. And that's lost. That is something that's lost in community as well.
I think, particularly from what Erika just shared, what I'm hearing is that discipline is freedom and excess is enslaving. its chains. And I'm wondering if there's a kind of stoic principle in there that would serve people to hear. But how do you tackle this? Because let's face it, we live in a world that is driven by corporations, possibly even beyond the level of our governments, in their ability to sway people's mindsets. How do you tackle something like that, where we have these voids, we don't necessarily feel that we're worthy, and all of this mass marketing that's got decades of psychology behind it, that's playing on your need to have this thing so that you'll feel better about yourself or you'll match up to other people? Is there even a way of tackling that?
There is a way. I think it's getting more in touch with yourself and doing the work on yourself that's necessary to be able to recognize when a voice outside of yourself is trying to tell you what's best for you. There's nobody who knows you better than you know yourself. And it's not fun. It's not easy to do the work. It's messy as hell, but it's worth it when you can finally hear your voice louder than any others, so that you can make decisions for yourself based on what you're saying and not what someone else is telling you need to be doing. Boundaries, which I get it. It's a lost art in our society. I think it's going down the crapper with respect and discipline and boundaries. I don't know. I think they need to start making a comeback and awareness being raised to the fact that we ultimately hold the final word. We, meaning each one of us individually, has the final say in what we think and in what we do. And it's okay if you're doing things in excess. This is not a shaming episode. If you're doing things in excess, shame on you. No, we all do it. It's the human condition. This is just hopefully to raise awareness to the fact that just take notice when you're doing it, and maybe ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is there something else I could be doing? Or is there something I'm trying not to feel or face or deal with right now? That's the first step.
That's what I was thinking of. What is it we're trying to fill with the instant gratification? What is it we're trying to fill with and we try to break free from boundaries because we were put on boundaries when we were a child, and now we live in this time and we can get anything that we want. It's really getting to know yourself and find out what makes you tick. But also find out if you are in excess and you want to change, are you changing for yourself or because other people? It's finding out yourself. Understand yourself. That's where you start. But that's where I am just now anyway.
Thank you both for your thoughts. Sticking with Paul Francis and rewilding yourself, he makes a suggestion that actually it is our disconnection with nature, and this is something again that is echoed in The Wild Edge of Sorrow, is when we look inside and we feel that there's something wrong, it's not anything to do with us. It is in fact the lack of connection to community, to a wider sense of family, to understanding our position and our roles in a society. So all of the things that it appears have gone out of fashion are actually keys to making us stronger, more effective as part of our communities, and freeing us from this belief that we aren't good enough and that we need something external to fill our lives. Once again, contact details will be in the comments below. Thank you, Erika and Stacy, and cheerio for now.